Call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Target.
Here.
Levin.
Here.
Marabella.
Here.
McCarthy.
Here.
White.
Here.
Whitmore. Here. Bruno.
Here. Please stand for tonight's prayer, invocation, and pledge. Tonight's invocation will be provided by Tim Bycroft of North Point Church.
Will you pray with me, please? Heavenly Father, as we come before you tonight, Lord, we thank you that you've given us opportunities to come together as the City Council and as some of the public has shown up tonight, Lord. I pray that all the decisions that are made tonight, Lord, they would glorify you, and that the discourse that takes place, Lord, would be honoring to you as well. Lord, that all of us, as we come together, want the best for this city. We want the best for the lives of our children, for the lives of the public. And so, Lord, we just pray that decisions would be made in wisdom, with discernment, and much knowledge that comes from you. Lord, we thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, and it's in his name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, approval of previous meeting minutes. I need a motion to approve the August 13th, 2019 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second. Second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Target.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Marabella.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Whitmore. Aye.
Motion carried. Second item, I need a motion to approve the August 20th, 2019 regular board meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion on that? Roll call, please.
Target.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Marabella.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Whitmore. Aye.
Motion carried. All business? There's none. Village Administrator's Report.
Members of the board, you have in your package a copy of the monthly Village Administrator's Report. A couple of items to point out is that we're working on the tree ordinance. This comes off of discussion by residents at the 1400 block of Monroe, having concerns about the downed trees at that intersection and looking for a potential ordinance that would limit the cutting of trees. Myself and Mayor Bruno and Village Attorney Long will be meeting with SWALCO as well as Advanced Disposal on September 12th to begin discussions of the landfill expansion out of Zion. We've also we will be starting a new credit card acceptance program. This will allow us to take in credit cards at the recreation center as far as how we do up in front. Consolidation of copier and lease contracts. We had 7 separate contracts for copier and leases. We've been able to meet with vendors to coordinate that into a single contract, reducing our costs. We're working on an IT consortium with multiple local governments local bodies of government for managed IT services, again with the intention of reducing costs based on economies of scale. Alarm monitoring and maintenance consolidation. You have in your package this evening the approval of contracts for FSS, as well as monitoring out of Mundelein for our alarm system. This was put together, and Trustee Marabella had asked about it 2 meetings ago. There will be significant savings as a result of this. We've had areas that had no monitoring and no protection as far as monitoring and maintenance, so this will change that. In doing a financial analysis, I had discovered that there was a disparity between costs of services rendered and revenues from the independent government body, the Winthrop Harbor Fire District. We will be renegotiating the contract and the terms in that contract to increase the revenues from that body to reflect the services that we render. We are in the process of completing a community attitude and interest survey for Parks and Recreation. We're going to send that out to the community and get their input on what they think they want in regards to parks, especially since we've seen shifting demographic, not only lower numbers in our population here in Winthrop Harbor, but the numbers also reflect that there is a decline in children and an increase in middle age towards senior residents. That's all I have if there's no questions.
Any questions for Greg Jackson? Thank you, Greg. So we'll move on to Mayor's report. Before we get started on these items, I'd just like to make a comment. As you are all here tonight, there's been stuff on Facebook, there's been stuff on television regarding a property in town. We as a village board try to get our residents to follow the proper codes, and every once in a while you get someone that will go in a different direction, and that's what happened in this case. On August 21st, we sent out a code violation form, and this violation form has 6 items on it. I'm going to read the 3rd item, and that's all noxious weeds and all plant growth, not including trees, shrubs, cultivated flowers, and gardens must be removed from the driveway, sidewalk, and parking areas along the fence line and in the area of the former 911 memorial. So that right there should have told the owners of the property that we didn't think the 911 memorial was still there because we couldn't see it when we sent the person around to check on what violations they were having. And then the item 6 is all obsolete signage must be removed, including signage referring to Springbrook School and 911 Memorial. Once again, we didn't think the memorial was there because we couldn't see it. It was covered in weeds. So
I have a
therefore,
question.
that's why we sent it.
I have a
Now,
question.
I'm going to turn it over to Greg Jackson. He has something he has to say.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, members of the board, a couple things. You have in your packages the photos that were taken of the property when, just prior to the violations being compiled for submission to the residents on 628 College Avenue. As a point of information, I had multiple conversations today with the media from Seattle to New York, including members of the 911 Fund, retired firefighters in New York, and again, a variety of media outlets, to explain to them our position as it related to the 911 memorial. Nowhere has it been said that we were ever talking about removing the memorial. Our concern was, and there may be some issues as it relates to legal jargon, such as the word obsolete and how it's used in the context. But there has never been any discussion by anybody on staff as to taking any action, including conversation we had with the village attorney as it relates to removing the 911 memorial. I'll quickly go over the summary that I provided the board for the benefit of the public. That way they can get a sequence of events or a synopsis as to what happened. And it begins this because I sent it to the board this weekend after I became aware of the communication on Facebook. I received several calls and emails this weekend regarding a posting on social media that has created a stir either attributed to misinformation or lack of information. With this being said, I wanted to present this synopsis regarding our recent enforcement efforts related to the property at 628 College Avenue. Since becoming village administrator, I've made it a habit to frequently travel through the village. During these travels, I look at roads and other infrastructure to identify existing or potential problems. I traverse through the North Point Marina property to monitor visitor and resident activity. I meet with both business owners and residents to discuss issues and/or concerns. And I also look for property maintenance and nuisance violations that can impact quality of life, property values, and/or the health and safety of our community residents. During the 3 months I've been in this position, I observed the conditions on and around the property at 628 College Avenue. With concern and adhering to the requirements of my position to see that all laws and ordinances are duly enforced, I directed Pat DiPersio, that's our Community Development Director, to conduct a perimeter inspection of College Avenue property. Make note of any Winthrop Harbor Village Code violations and formally report back to me. Pat completed a summary of the violations and submitted that list to me for review. During our discussion of the violations, I inquired as to the past practices in handling the same. I was informed that compliance was always the primary objective. Attempting to work with the property owner in achieving corrective action was preferable to levying fines. I believe this to be a proper course of action as well. and ask Pat to proceed in drafting communications to the property owner, and in doing so, review the same with the village attorney. In total, 6 code violations were identified. It's here that I would like to address several items in response to the social media posting and public responses to the same. First, I do not feel it was necessary to notify any of the village board of our enforcement efforts. This issue is a code enforcement issue. This is something we as village staff deal with every single day. Code issues, resident complaints, business concerns, infrastructure questions, these are things we literally deal with every single day in meeting the public's needs for the efficient and effective delivery of public goods and services. If we were to communicate every action taken that impacted a resident or a business owner, we would not be able to take any action because we'd be too busy communicating. We do what needs to be done and move on to the next priority. Second, I believe it's important to note the direction given. It has been alleged that action taken was harassment. Harassment evolves from discriminatory grounds, and discrimination is the prejudice of a category of people. I have never met the property owner, had my first communication with the property owner this afternoon, and I quite honestly couldn't identify the property owner. I'm sure he's in this room, but I have not had the opportunity to meet Mr. Wood. This was not an arbitrary action by code enforcement, management, or personnel. I was the one who gave the direction to pursue the enforcement of the code violations without any familiarity of the property owner and without passion or prejudice. Third, the requirement for compliance with the obsolete signage is what seems to resonate with those expressing concern on social media. This is one code violation, and it is a sign code violation of 6, and quite honestly, the easiest to address and fix. And by all indications on the recent media coverage, it has already been addressed. If an affinity exists for the Spring Bluff School sign, then the owner is welcome. In fact, I would encourage the owner to come and meet with me and staff to inquire about maintaining the sign for historical purposes. If it would be of benefit to the community, we would not hesitate to research and discuss options on how to proceed. In fact, the letter of violation sent to the property owner is designed as a tool to prompt dialogue versus penalty. Finally, the 911 memorial signage. I could not find the memorial, that is why the signage was deemed obsolete. The memorial was covered and surrounded by weeds and debris. You have the pictures. On a personal note, as both a United States Marine Corps veteran and a former firefighter, I was offended by what I saw. Such a memorial is for remembrance and reverence. The condition I saw of the memorial is not even close. The school district sold Mr. Wood the property. There is no issue on this. It is his property, and his property rights should be protected. Concurrently, though, with his compliance with the village ordinances, nothing more or nothing less is expected of any of our residents of our community. I don't think anyone wanted to see College Avenue property sit vacant. The only thing worse could be property that was poorly maintained. Property maintenance and nuisance issues may have already arrived to that point. No one wants to see the memorial removed. I emphasize that. Nobody has ever said remove the memorial. In fact, I believe that Mr. Wood was given the trust of the community to maintain that memorial when he bought the property. And it's quite an honor. However, when you choose not to maintain the integrity of the memorial, then what of those who are memorialized? Again, the last violation notice is easy to address. All Mr. Wood needs to do is meet with us to discuss. I hope this provides some insight as to the sequence of events, and I welcome the opportunity to work with Mr. Wood and his family on bringing the violations into compliance.
Thank you, Greg. Now, I'll allow the board members to have any comments if you're on. I'll be turning it over to public comment towards the end of the meeting, so you'll be able to speak as well. Anybody on the board have anything to say?
Yeah, I mean, when first became aware of it this weekend, right, seeing things online, I tried reaching out and trying to understand what's going on. Later in the day, I was at a funeral at the time, later in the day went past to look at it, and when I drove past, I think you made a good point. Government language is sometimes cold and formal, right? So words like obsolete tend to stir certain emotions. I think for me, I've been around it enough, seeing the jargon, and you see it, you just think that's a sign referring to something that's no longer there. We deal with that with businesses that have closed all the time, you know, and so when I saw that, I drove past and said, yeah, there's a Spring Bluff sign for a school that's no longer in business. Easy solution here is put up the years it was in business. Find some way to preserve it if there's interest in the family preserving it, right? These things tend to usually have simple solutions. The memorial, I had a similar response, so I drove past. I inquired about it, was told the 9/11 memorial was moved by the fire station, the public memorial. So when I drove past and saw it overgrown, and saw that there's no signage indicating like public welcome or, I had the same thought. Okay, the 9/11 memorial was moved, and the solution here is either saying, hey, no, we want to maintain it. Yeah, we need to do something here. Or, you're right, we can no longer maintain it. Let's move these pieces that are here to complement what's at the memorial at the fire station. So I had a similar response when the letter came out. Again, government lingo is jargon, and those words like obsolete, particularly around the memorial, or signage referring to a memorial, can immediately stir a reaction. So I certainly understand that. I do want to say, I'm over community development, right? And I don't want to know what violations are going out. I don't, we've had at times comments from people coming here and say, oh, it's a good old boys club. It's it's about who you know. The best way to protect that is to not have the elected body involved in the day-to-day operations. And so I've had instances where a family member received a stop order because they didn't pull a permit. That was an awkward Thanksgiving, but right, you work through those things. I myself had a CSO a few years ago stop by because I had grass growing through my driveway. They gave me a warning, and I had to address it. I wouldn't want Pat or any of the staff to wonder, oh, do I need to check with him before I write this? Is this okay? And it is a formal way of starting the conversation, sending a letter, but we have to have a standardized way of doing that. And so I think the approach that we've given staff, the philosophy of we want to get these things into compliance. It's not about fees, it's not about fines, it's about making sure that we're working towards compliance. It's been an approach that's worked for us for a long time.
Thank you, Trustee Hart. Anyone else?
Yeah, so a little history on this. 2 years ago, the property was sold. Property was sold, and nobody had the forethought to think that this 911 thing was on this property. Property was sold, people that own it. They instructed, I was the head of Public Works then, and there was a different mayor, and they instructed people to go remove stones. Well, we had to cease that, and we did not, because we weren't able to do that because it wasn't ours anymore. So that started the whole process of what's going on. So I had to tell my then Public Works guy that he could not go remove these stones from this property. It was no longer ours. They moved the memorial, which now exists, to there, but we still have that one. And that's what's going on. I was not aware of anything that went on. I don't do Facebook. My wife does. She does enough for all of us. That's what happens there. But so vicariously, I found out about this. And I believe we put people in place, and not to just stand up here and try to defend anything. We put people in place to do things, and we've just started the position we did. And I think things were said and things happened that it is harsh words, and it's things that we don't want to hear, and I just think things got taken. And who knows? And I don't know, because it wasn't me that it was said to. So if it's said to you, you take things differently. When somebody attacks you, your first reaction is to fight back. That's normal. That's any of us in this room. I'm not going to say I wouldn't do it. It's going to happen. I think we came to this point, but I think we have a rationality here that we're going to do something about this, and we're going to do the right thing as a board. I don't think anybody in their right mind would ever want to not have a memorial, especially a 911. You couldn't live in this community and say, because our community is pretty tight-knit. So that being said, I had no knowledge of it. I received a phone call about it. I addressed it. I think we're moving in the right direction to make this better. And I think as a community we can get through this. I mean, sometimes it takes both sides to see that both sides can be right, and it doesn't have to be totally wrong. I think both sides are gonna be right here. I think we tried to do something as a group, and maybe we didn't use the right wording, and we didn't do it the right way, but we wanted to get something done, and the property owner, they have the right to do what they're gonna do too. So I think we can work through this. I believe it.
Well,
That's
code
my-
compliance is tricky, because our very last meeting, we had a group here filling half the audience saying, you know, the village needs to do more. What can you do to further enforce things in my neighborhood, right? And then you can have the next meeting of, oh, you may have overstepped
Did that
here.
property owner show up? Did that property owner say anything? Did that property owner come in here and do anything about that? No, they didn't.
No, I'm just.
That's the difference I'm talking
No,
about.
you're right, but code
The
compliance.
property
that's the
owner
challenge.
did not show up for that particular property. Here, we have people that are property owners that, and different opinions about different people can be such. But I believe these people try to do well in the community, and they try to spend money within the community.
Absolutely.
That's the difference. So I won't agree with you, what you just said.
I think what you see here is, when you get a letter like this, and sometimes it can get very upsetting, but the process should be to talk with the authorities that sent the letter first, without going to social media. Social media has a lot of fake news. That's why I'm not on Facebook. I do have a Facebook page, but I'm hardly on it, because to verify a lot of that information is extremely difficult.
It's also just.
Part of the problem in social media today is that we accept it as fact. I've gotten a letter, I've lived here 34 years, I've gotten a letter like this, similar, and the first thing I do is I approach the person who wrote the letter to me and say, what can I do to mitigate this? You know, and to deal with the city officials, whomever. And I get letters saying, okay, this is what you gotta do, could you please put that in a letter form so I can understand, and we have an understanding between you and I get it taken care of. You know, whether it's the community, whether it's with the state or the federal government. But I don't put it on social media, because that's between me and the community or the people that I'm talking with. Otherwise, you get a lot of people getting hurt. The understanding and the feelings that you get, you know, like my wife always says, you get your underwear in a bunch. That hurts, you know, and so you just don't do things like that to hurt the community. I mean, this is hurting the community, whether right or wrong, it's hurting our community to be put on a page like this and to get the proper information and the right information. That's what we're doing here tonight. Again, we have the photographs from before, and I've seen the after. You know, and we have the proof right here of what was before and why we sent the letter, but we never got, really, as I understand it, no communication back until now.
Right.
Or on social media.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Weiss. Thank you, trustee Mirabella, too. Anyone else? Trustee?
Yeah, so I spent my Labor Day weekend fielding harassment, emails, texts, phone calls, messages, and I want it on the record, again, I know you did mention it, Greg, that the village board members had nothing to do with this. They were not notified regarding the Woods property violation letter. The administration that is behind this has completely embarrassed each and every one of us. If you think I'm gonna take the heat for something that I had no notification over, I am not. I have received emails where people upset that they even voted for me, stated they would never vote for me again. As you guys stated, the word obsolete probably should have never been in this letter. Each and every one of you involved are professional communicators. I don't know why you would choose the word obsolete when you were regarding a 9/11 memorial. You wonder why everybody is so upset. You guys have even said it yourself. Maybe the wording wasn't right. You guys all knew what you were doing in the wording. You guys are not amateurs.
A 911 memorial, we didn't know was there.
Then why are you complaining that there's a sign over an obsolete memorial?
Well,
You're
if there's no
complaining about a sign
911
that's
memorial,
this
the
big.
sign shouldn't be there either.
But, so my question would be, why can't a property owner have a sign this large on their property?
Have you read the sign code?
Exactly.
So my
It's a
beware of dog
residential zone.
sign,
It's a
residential property.
Correct, so it is the exact same size as a beware of dog sign. So why can't they have a plaque on their yard over a beware of dog sign?
Settle somebody. Yeah, amen.
I will vote for you.
All I gotta say is, we did not know there was a 911 memorial there.
But how hard would it have been to go to the property owners and ask, hey, is this memorial still on your property?
Well,
How-
we set this out, they should've came to us.
Well, Mr. Mayor, if I could interject, the
Shame on you guys.
accusation that, at least what I'm understanding of leaving the board in the dark, I don't understand that because that's the difference between policymakers and public administration. That's the role of the public administrators, to take policy and implement it. When we talk about policy, Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, but obsoletes the language in the code, is that correct?
Correct.
It's the language in the code, so you don't have latitude to change the language in the code. You have latitude to change the code. And that happens with the body, not us. That happens with the elected officials. We can't arbitrarily change the language in the code. We can't.
With that being said, no other property has a memorial on their site. So I understand that this is completely not under the village board, and it doesn't need to come to us for a vote. However, this is a property that takes up an entire city block. This is also a property that used to be a building, it used to be a school. So it obviously isn't a typical property owner. Also, we're discussing a 9/11 memorial. So although most ordinance violations don't come through us, maybe some should, maybe some rare cases should, because this is definitely a rare case. And obviously now we have the entire village upset with us over something that could have been so easily handled.
And look,
How do you pitch that though? How do you explain to the people that come forward, how do you explain to them why one person's property justifies that, one person doesn't? I mean, I'm upset by the situation as well, and I'm dealing with the same thing, but I'm not embarrassed by our officials doing their job as it's laid out for them. So how would you, if we're picking properties, how do you tell someone then, say, well, your property justifies us contacting beforehand, but your neighbors does not?
Well, most don't have a memorial site.
One other thing I would interject too is that the memorial and the signage, the Spring Bluff signage and the memorial, were the last violation captured. We were there looking at other nuisance violations. The other 5 violations were there. I mean, we did not go over there and say, okay, you have a 911 memorial that we can't observe, that's the violation, we walked away from it, and that was the only thing we were there for. That wasn't the reason we were there. We were there to look at the property based on the fencing, based on rubbish, based on weeds not being pulled, and this was one item in a list of 6 violations.
But to throw in rubbish and to throw in a 9/11 memorial pretty much in the same breath
Amen.
isn't appropriate.
It's the same
I
violation.
understand that, but here's the thing.
And now, excuse me for getting a little fired up here, but as a veteran,
Inappropriate.
Inappropriate for veterans too.
Inappropriate.
as a veteran,
We are veterans too.
I'm not dismissing that. I'm saying as a veteran, I would not even think about diminishing the value of the 911 memorial. That's all I'm saying. I'm not disrespecting or disparaging any other veteran, brothers and sisters. I'm not disparaging it.
That's how it came across.
Well, then I apologize, but that wasn't independent.
May I say one thing here? We wouldn't be here today and discussing this if the owners had approached you, Mr. Jackson, or Pat DePercio. We wouldn't have this tonight.
Goes both ways.
What is wrong with two-way communication? Did you bother to talk to any of the village?
No, they have no problem knocking on my door and asking if I'll donate my property to them, but they can't knock on my door and ask me about my memorial.
Shame on you guys.
By the way, the
Are there any other
legislation that you're gonna
comments?
come up with that's gonna get this out of
You'll
our
get your
law.
chance, you'll get your chance. Any other comments from the board? All right, we move on. Mayor's report. I need a motion to adopt appointment resolution appointing George Ann Groff as chairperson of the Recreation Advisory Board.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? I'll just say that we were asked to, Greg Jackson and I met with Scott Fuller regarding these 3 appointment resolutions, and he gave us names. I contacted all 3, and they were overjoyed to sit in the positions that they're being appointed for tonight. So, we got a motion and a second. Any other discussion on that? Roll call, please.
Target.
Aye.
Levin. Mirabella.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Whitmore. Aye.
Motion carried. We move on to item number 2. I need a motion to adopt appointment resolution appointing Nicole Moore as a committee member, Recreation Advisory Board.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that item? Roll call, please.
Target.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Mirabella.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Whitmore. Aye.
Motion carried. Item number 3, I need a motion to adopt appointment resolution appointing Julie Kelly as a committee member, Recreation Advisory Board.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion on that one. Roll call, please.
Target.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Mirabella.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Whitmore. Aye.
Motion carried. Number 4, I need a motion to adopt appointment resolution appointing Margot Nelson, Planning and Zoning Board member.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Well, that was, that Margot is going to be taking the remainder of Kurt Melander's position on the Planning and Zoning Board. Any other discussion on that item? Roll call, please.
Target.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Mirabella.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Whitmore. Aye.
Motion carried. Number 5, I need a motion to set aside the rules of the President and Board of Trustees to waive the first and second readings of ordinance amending section C7 and E10 of the wage policy ordinance.
Second. Make a motion.
Second.
Any discussion on that?
Mr. Mayor, is there any discussion on this at all? It was not posted online, so nobody has any idea what that ordinance is. Is there any feedback at all from the community relative to that before it is passed and it becomes the law, if I can call it that?
It's posted after we...
Posted after it's approved.
Right.
So how is there any input from the community relative to whether that's a good ordinance or not?
We have-
It's
we have-
not posted until after it's approved.
We have meetings to discuss it, so we have committee of the whole meetings that are posted, in which we have committee of the whole meetings that are posted, that tell what we're working on with this, that we formulated this with, but then we vote on it in a regular board meeting. So the minutes for that, the agenda for that have been posted and everything when we discussed, the wage ordinance, and then we have to vote on it in the, public meetings. But all the meetings are public.
Where are they posted?
The agendas are always posted online and on the building doors, yeah. Yeah. So it's part of the budget process that we go through in the spring and into the early summer, and then we have to vote on it though in a regular board meeting. But they are public meetings that are held.
There will be a public meeting.
No, they were done, it was a process that we went through, now it's just the voting on the final wage ordinance.
And what committee?
It's a committee of the whole, so it's a public meeting held in this room that we've had.
I'll elaborate on those 2 ordinances. Okay. I'm not sure which one is fire department, is C7?
The one ordinance, Mayor, just changes the term summer for a maintenance worker
Right.
and public works.
That's public works.
Strictly a language change.
Right. Goes from summer maintenance worker to seasonal maintenance worker. And the other item is fire department.
That amends the ordinance so that we can ensure that we have a paramedic on duty throughout the evening hours, because we've been shorthanded for emergency medical services,
Right.
paramedics. So this is a wage incentive to ensure we have paramedics on through the evening shifts. It does not alter the budget or the appropriation whatsoever.
Let me just read this, if I can, maybe give you a little bit more insight. Our department, this is from our fire chief. Our department has been seeing a drastic drop in numbers, especially paramedics, over the past few years. There are many reasons for this, which I would like to detail for the board as a whole someday in the future. One way we can potentially start to help with this problem is to increase compensation at night. For those that aren't aware, we typically keep a crew of at least 5 in the station at night, 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. for an immediate initial response to emergencies. These members are given a $50 stipend for being here and their regular hourly rate for any calls responded on or training conducted during that time frame. I believe we need to start compensating hourly as best as budget allows. At this time, it appears the budget would allow for one position to be paid hourly, with the hope that in subsequent budget years, we can look at increasing this. Myself, along with our command staff, would work on a policy to determine who would be in this paid nightly position and attempt to spread the compensation across membership as best as possible, with the priority being the paramedics we employ, as a healthy roster of paramedics is what allows us to get ambulances out the door. I would be happy to discuss further either a board meeting or a one-on-one with any of you. Greg and Trustee John Levin have agreed that this is a public safety issue worth moving forward with. In my opinion, it is just a small first step toward compensating our folks a little better to ensure we maintain consistent, around-the-clock emergency coverage for our village. So that's what that
May
was.
I address the
At the
panel?
At the end, during public comment.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing.
At public comment.
Public comment.
At the end of the meeting.
At the end?
Yes.
Okay.
So if I could just elaborate
I suspect
on that, if you would let me. So C7 is a public works. So we normally had N Parks and Recreation. So we have summer helpers. Summer helpers are people that want to get involved in the community. They're either going to college, or they're people that we don't have to pay benefits to, which I'm a good union guy, so I'm not all for that, but it helps the village in that we don't pay them benefits. They're part-time employees. So we bring them in, normally in the summertime. We've elaborated on that because some kids choose to go to CLC or up here to Parkside, community colleges, which allow them not to go to school every day. So then they can in turn work for us, and we can pay them a fair wage, but we don't have to pay them benefits. So it allows us to save money as a community, but we're still getting the quality work from these people that eventually they might want to do this for a living, they might not. They might just be using it to pay for their college or help their parents pay for their college. The E10, that's the paramedic thing. My dad used to be mayor in town. My dad was a volunteer fireman. His family was volunteer firemen. There's a lot of people in this community that were volunteer firemen. Our town used to be based on volunteer firemen. The whole community, that was the network. The police department, the fire department. We've got to a point where we hire these kids, we bring these kids in, and I'm not against it, we train them. They go on to do better jobs elsewhere because there's better paying jobs for them once they get their training and they have to go. There's better jobs, which is good for them. It's good for our community. Whether or not they stay here or not, their parents are still here, but it's good for that. So we're using this so what he's trying to do is to keep, and Street does a very great job. He's trying to keep the quality of our fire department in our town. He's trying to keep that here, the nucleus of that fire department. You need people to stay on staff. It used to be, when I was a kid, the radio rang, or the siren went. It was a beep, beep, beep. There was no cell phones, there was no, now all that technology's there, but in order for that, all this staff doesn't live here in town anymore. So to get somebody that's qualified to stay here, we need them to stay here and pay them, or they're not that easily accessible. So if they're here and they're sleeping over there, they're out right away. And that's the skinny of it. I know and I understand the frustration, I really do. But this simple one, it's not any full-time. It's part-time people, because our fire department is volunteer and still part-time. We have no full-time staff over there. But that's basically what this is. And I know it doesn't help you with what you're looking for, but that's basically why this went about the way, and it's normal procedure for this. You're just entrusting us to make the right decisions for you, and I hope we do.
I understand the purpose, and I fully support that. My question is not the purpose, but the method.
And that's
That's
our
what my
method.
comment would be, is the method. That's what I want to address.
Okay.
I understand the purpose. I accept that.
That's all I got.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Target,
Aye.
Levin,
Aye.
Mirabella.
Aye.
McCarthy,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Whitmore. Aye.
Motion carried. We move on to number 6. I need a motion to request approval to enter into a contract with FSS Technologies for both the connection of 3 Village of Winthrop Harbor fire alarm panels to the Mundelein Dispatch Center and a maintenance and service agreement for all 3 panels locations.
So moved.
Second.
And I'll read that one too.
Okay, that was on
Just to help you out. I'm not sure this will answer your question either. Under previous operations of Winthrop Harbor Village, Hall Complex fire alarm panel was monitored by 911 telecommunicators who were on site 24/7. Now that dispatch is consolidated with the Mundelein Police Department, we no longer have personnel manning the fire panel on a 24/7 basis. This necessitates that the fire panel be extended to an off-site monitoring center. Through this process, it was determined that there are 2 additional panels, Public Works and Rec Center, that also need monitoring. There is also no current maintenance and service agreement in place for any of the 3 panels. And then financial impact, there is a one-time connection fee of $450 and monthly equipment charges of $90 for FSS owned equipment at all 3 sites, which is $1,080 per year. This expense would be initially allocated to Fund 05, which is Community Development, and Line 420, Maintenance, Building and Grounds. The Mundelein Police Department have agreed to waive the monthly monitoring charge of $90 for a saving realized of $1,080 per year. So I have a motion second, I just need a roll call.
Target,
Aye.
Levin,
Aye.
Mirabella,
Aye.
McCarthy,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Whitmore. Aye.
Motion carried. Move on to correspondence. We move on to new business, committee reports, finance, trustee Weiss.
Yeah, thank you. I make a motion, we approve accounts payable warrant 2019-8 in the amount of $109,888.25.
Aye.
Any discussion on the warrant? Roll call, please.
Target,
Aye.
Levin,
Aye.
Mirabella.
Aye.
McCarthy.
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Whitmore. Aye.
Motion carried.
Second item, I make a motion, we approve resolution for approval of vehicle lease for 3 vehicles approved for year 19 and 20 budget with tax exempt leasing. This is the vehicles, 2 police cars and 1 for the fire department. So, and this was approved.
This is in the budget.
Yeah, this is in the budget with the committee of the whole for when we did that, and then approving it today.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Roll call, please.
Target,
Aye.
Levin,
Aye.
Mirabella,
Aye.
McCarthy,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Whitmore. Aye.
Motion carried. We move on to recreation, trustee Whitmer.
I need to make a motion that we renew the annual contract for the Winthrop Harbor Lions Club.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that?
It's just something we do with the Lions Club. They do bingo, they do a lot of stuff for our community. All for the Lions Club. They were at the parade. They're very good people.
Very good. Okay. Roll call.
Target,
Aye.
Levin,
Aye.
Mirabella,
Aye.
McCarthy,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Whitmore. Aye.
Motion carried.
I need to make a motion that we add an additional fitness class for children aged 4 to 12 years old. We are going to be starting a new fitness class, again, ages 4 to 12. Registration is going to be handled by the village. We are looking to to start a new activity for a younger group of kids over at, Schlater Center.
Second. Okay. Any discussion? Roll call?
Target,
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Mirabella.
Aye.
Carney.
Aye.
White.
Aye.
Whitmore. Aye.
Motion carries. Now we come to public hearings. Just ask that you provide us with your name and your address. Hello, Richard.
Since nobody else wants to get up, I will. Rich Stone. My home address is 2120 11th Street, there in Marvin. That memorial was very special to me. I was one of them that helped the Girl Scouts put that in. If we're gonna have a problem with it, I'd like to see us move it out. With your permission, move it out to the memorial out there on 38 acres with the rest of the veterans. Because a lot of those people that died at 9/11 were veterans, military veterans. And I'd like to see it moved out here.
My name is Jillian Hinton. I reside at 2505 at 9th Street. I have never been to a township meeting before.
Welcome.
I'm nervous. I do not feel welcome. So, I had a few things that I'd like to say. I'm a Gold Star wife. For all you that don't know. I'm a Gold Star wife. For anyone that doesn't know what that is, we are the surviving family members of the fallen. Each of us are well aware of what the cost of the American way of life is because I paid for it. I moved to this town shortly after my husband, U.S. Army Sergeant Terrence Travius Hinton, was killed. I came here to grieve because I didn't know a single soul here. I barely still do because this is an good old boys town. It's hard to break into this town. So there are a few residents that I've had the pleasure to meet, and all of them know my circumstances, and I have grown to love some of them very much. There are good neighbors in this town, and for those that, once I venture outside of my grief, and I've gotten out into the town, there have been a lot of great people that I've met. So I started thinking about staying here, and I had an opportunity to move to Florida, that's here or there. Anyway, the other day I'm on Facebook, and sure, it's 2019, and even President Trump has a Twitter. You might want to catch up. Social media is how the public stays informed. It's a way of transparency, and your aggressiveness and the way you talk about it shouldn't be that way. It only makes me as a citizen feel like there's things that this board has to hide. So just moving forward, I want you to know that social media, though it has its bad sides, is why I'm here today. That's how I found out about this. It is embarrassing to be a part of this town. I called the news. It wasn't the homeowner, so you don't have to be mad at her. I did it. Got 4 more agencies on the line waiting to see what happens here tonight. I got 50,000 Gold Star wives that are waiting to see what this board and this town does. To refer, I got a phone call this morning from Mr. Jackson. It's odd that we spoke because I was told that the wording that would be used tonight is as long as it stays the way that it is right now, that the board would take this entire matter off of the table. And it's odd that you did anything but say that. In fact, you referred to soldiers as garbage, and you talked about 5 other violations, and you skated around all over the place, and yes, I reported it. The one thing you did not say is what you promised me on the phone, that if it maintained the way it is right now, and the homeowner kept it up to code, the way it is right now, that it would be taken off the table. Is that still your position, sir?
Yes.
Is that everybody's position?
Yes, absolutely.
So, as long as it stays the way it is right now, there's no more harassment, no more violations, no more letters, no more,
Unless there's
gotta
a
move
full
it.
violation, there'll be another letter.
Okay, fair enough. I would like to know, I would like you to know, that I have 2 children. They're 17 and 7. They lost their dad. I almost brought them in here tonight so that you could look at them and tell them that 9/11 is obsolete. I want you to think about the next time that you, Sorry, they're laughing because that was pretty good, right? I did, but unlike you, know what's appropriate to say and what's not. So I didn't bring my children in here to.
Could you quit referring to it as us, because this board didn't do that?
I'm sorry, sir,
You
you're right.
have to stop.
Yes, sir, yes,
Because
sir.
you'll insult me.
I'm sorry, sir. The members of the board, the member of the board, and the mayor who knew about it, and the attorney, I didn't want them to come in here and hear the disgusting way that you're talking about our soldiers. So, it says it's a park. Let me tell you what makes it not obsolete. I visit it. I'm a citizen of this town. I visit it, which no longer makes it obsolete. I can bring 50,000 people to this town to visit it too. Whatever you need to do to convince you it's not obsolete, because clearly 3,000 people dying on that day wasn't good enough for you. Maybe the 15,000 family members that were left behind that day weren't good enough for you. I'm not really sure what it's gonna take. You know, you guys don't even like the flag in front of the city hall. Has anyone noticed that?
Yeah. Yep.
You don't even like the flag in front of City Hall, but you want me to convince today that this is just bad wording. No, this is bad taste. And all of you that were involved, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Hargett, Mr. Jackson, and whoever the attorney is that's running this sham should be ashamed of yourself, because I'm ashamed to be of this town, part of this town, and I guarantee you there's nothing that's gonna happen tonight. No amount of backpedaling is gonna make us forget what happened tonight. This is a black eye in this town, but there is one good thing. Instead of now being known as the former KK town, the prejudice town, the good old boys town, now you're known as unpatriotic, and if I was you, I would run and been the first one.
I didn't think I'd be following something like that, but I guess here I am. So, obviously I'm not a speaker, this isn't something that I regularly have to do, is come and defend my home, but here I am, so I guess here we'll go. My name is Lee Gardella Wood. I reside at 628 College Avenue. I own the school, I now own the church, and I own the Parsonage House. So I now own the block. I guess for some that must be a problem, but let me just start with my timeline, so maybe somebody will understand why at this point I am just fed up. In April 2011, we purchased Springfield School. We were asked at that time if we could move the memorial. They were asked if they could move the boulders. Absolutely, we gave them 1 year to do so. All we ask is that you please level the property so that I can mow. No big deal. May 2012, we started getting warnings on weeds in the 9/11 memorial. In June 2012, after I obviously couldn't keep up because I'd let it go at that point, Kasha, who is here today, a Girl Scout, picked up as her gold project. July 28th, you guys did the ribbon cutting. August 29th, I was told the day before, so the 28th, I was told that they were going to be coming and digging up my yard. I called the fire department. No one knew anything about it. But yet on August 29th, bright and early, 7 a.m., I had vehicles in my front yard digging up the stones. One was moved to the front of the fire department, where it sat for 2 weeks. I reached out to many people. One responded. One answered my call. That was Mr. Marabella. Marabella told me that if that's what I wanted back, that would be fine, and he got it back for us. They dropped it. No apologies. No, I'm sorry. This is private property. You can't just dig up somebody's yard. You can't just come on my property and dig things up because you want it. I give 110% to this village. Anything you guys want. Your fire department didn't have a light. I went and bought one, donated it. Your fire department lost their canine dog. I held a fundraiser that you were there. I do a lot to be treated this way. A knock on the door would have been great. Oh, we send letters. But when your fire department said, you have the tallest building in this village, can we use it to practice? Nobody sent me a letter. You know what they did? They called me, because that's what people do. Moving on. April 3rd, 2014, we had a band booster sale that I hosted to help the band. I was later told that night that we couldn't have the band booster sale in the gym, wasn't allowed. Okay, I understand there's policy, I get it. We moved into my house, because I'd be darned if I'm going to let those kids lose that kind of money that I worked very hard for. We moved in the home, it was a great success. Yes, I had people walking through my kitchen and my living room shopping for items, but I didn't care because I did it for the kids of this community. On April 16th, 2014, we had a great run with your fire inspector, who was taking photos through my windows. There is a video, you guys have had it, there was a letter sent to you. May of 2014, we had several more issues with your fire inspector. Mind you, he's a commercial fire inspector, we're a residential location, driving through my yard, taking photos, parking in odd places. We had a lot of problems, a lot of police calls actually. August 5th, I had to go get an emergency order That's how bad it got. So for you guys to say, oh, just come and talk to us, well, let me tell you, it's not the most welcoming environment. So we got my emergency order of protection, April 5th, 2014. August 26th, I went before, it was granted a 2-year. Normally when you're granted a 2-year, it's because somebody obviously did something they shouldn't do. Your fire inspector appealed it, and on October 2nd, 2014, it was again granted after a long day trial. That same exact evening, I got to call the police because he violated his order of protection. The number is 14-10-00752, filed with Smith Parker if you'd like to look it up. September 11th, we own several properties, bowling alleys. We had purchased Antioch Lanes in the village of Antioch. We went before the village meeting. September 11th, 2017, my husband went before the village of Antioch to ask for a liquor license, where we were confronted by Mr. Long, who decided to pretty much degrade my husband in anything that had ever gone wrong on my property at Pinchers and bring up several other things. We were contacted by several board members about his actions, and they've apologized like crazy. But moving on, June 2019, we purchased the church, and we also purchased the parsonage house, therefore making us now own the block. And in August 2019, we received the tickets now for this obsolete memorial. But let me tell you about the tickets that I received. They weren't sent to my home like every other ticket I've ever received. No, they weren't. They were sent to an address on at my father-in-law's house, which his name is on the property. But why has every other ticket always been sent to my home? Just find that very odd. So now let's talk about your wording, which was horrible. The obsolete signage must be removed. Signage, not weeds, not grass in front of it, nothing. It says your signage must be removed, referring to Spring Bluff School and the 9/11 Memorial. Very clear. It called it obsolete, which obviously the definition of no longer in use or out of date or no longer useful. Obviously 9/11 is never going to be obsolete. It refers to it that it was been abandoned, which means you just leave a place or give up completely. Obviously I live there, it's not being given up. Somebody was hired actually to clean it, so I find it odd we get all these tickets, and that's what he does. And he told us that in these months you're supposed to let it overgrow, then he cut everything down before winter. Obviously my husband got mad. If you go out, you'll see it's now mowed, all of it. But that's what he told us we were supposed to do. He also told me, a bunch of other things that he's going to be doing on the property, but we rented him the parsonage house for half of what anyone else's normal rent would be, so that would be taken care of. I guess at this point, I just would like to say that I'm very upset with the way that this was handled. I have never, ever denied this village anything pretty much they've ever asked me for. Anything you guys have ever asked, I've done for you. So at this point, I guess that's pretty much what I'll leave you with, that I'm just very disappointed in this. I'm very upset that I call my village trustees and they know nothing, except for Buddy Hargett. He did get back to me and he wanted to have a meeting next week, which, it's kind of sad when you think of somebody as your friend. My kid goes to school with your kid, and me and your wife get along great, she's awesome. But you couldn't just knock on my door. But what you could do is come and have a meeting at my house for 5 hours one day when you were running for mayor and ask me to donate my property to the village. You had no problem doing that. But you have a problem telling me, you know what, Lee, let's do something with this week. And then I would have told you, you know what, buddy, we hired somebody. Would you like to meet him? And that's probably how that would have gone, because anyone that knows me now, I'm very open. I'll talk to anyone about anything. I'm not a BS person, so I just would like to say that there's a reason why I didn't come to you, and that timeline I think explains it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening. Marty Heller, 2808 13th Street, Windsor Harbor. And I'm here on a different concern. Although I have followed the Facebook postings that pertain to the 9/11. But I haven't been able to attend the meeting for quite some time. And in trying to catch up with what has taken place during those times that I could not attend, I went back and I read minutes. And so tonight I particularly want to address 2 items that were in the minutes of August 6th. One is pertaining to Mr. Jackson's village administration report, in which he said that he had met with officials of Buffalo Grove relative to drawing an analysis on wage and compensation. I found it very interesting that you would choose to draw on analysis from Buffalo Grove when our village and Buffalo Grove have nothing in common except that we are both designated as a village. Buffalo Grove has an operating budget, an overall budget of $78 million, an operating budget of $44.5 million, a population of 41,500. Winthrop Harbor's population 6,832, with an operating budget of $5,245,598. I've done my homework. A median income in Winthrop Harbor is $80,568. A median household income in Buffalo Grove is $106,564. So, my question is, why would you draw analysis data from Buffalo Grove, which has no correlation to the size or median income of this village? I challenge you with that question.
Yeah, when we talk to directors of human resources, when we talk to other village managers, we talk to them about methods for aggregating data. We talk to them about the purposes, and this goes to the wage and compensation study that we're trying to put together. We'll mine data from a variety of villages, but not necessarily use that data. We may use it as a high-end benchmark versus us, which would be lower in the case of Buffalo Grove. We also use it to gather information for job descriptions. A police officer in Buffalo Grove is going to do the same thing a police officer in Winthrop Harbor is. Different demographics, different geography, but the positions are going to be the same. The same requirements, especially those that have to be required under state trainings. Same with the fire department. There are different functions for a finance director. So, I mean, there are a variety of sources of data that we can use from a bigger community. But when we're going to do comparisons, we're going to do comparisons to private sector marketplace for people like a clerk. What would a clerk be making in total compensation, not just wages? Because when people turn around and think of a wage study, they think a clerk in the private sector may be making this amount of money, clerk in the public sector may be making this amount per hour, but it's the whole compensation package. The compensation for insurance or pension may be greater in the public sector than it is in the private sector. So you aggregate a bunch of data from various sources, various types of data, so you can get benchmarks, high, medium, and low, so you can get job descriptions. That's why, and Buffalo Grove's not the only one. I'm talking to Beach Park, John Kinseth over there. I'm going to be working with Moses Amade over in Wadsworth communities that are more closely, to your point, closely related to our side.
And Lake Villa is higher than us, but
in
the ballpark.
No, your point's well taken, but it's when we talk about comparing comps to comps and salary, benefits may be the same. I mean, for example, all employees, the better part of employees in local government all fall into the IMRF pension. So, I mean, that's going to be comparable from one community to another.
In your report, at least according to the minutes, you didn't say that you were going to speak to Buffalo Grove and other entities. And that's my concern, that you're drawing conclusions based on what you are discussing or deriving from Buffalo Grove.
Yeah, I appreciate the question and the query, absolutely. No, you cannot do a wage and compensation study by taking one village. It doesn't work. You are not, you're absolutely not getting comparables.
Well, based on what I concluded from reading the minutes, I concluded that you were going to Buffalo Grove. There was no mention that you, in your report, that you were seeking information from other areas. You know, to me comparing Winthrop Harbor to Buffalo Grove is like comparing grapes to grapefruit, because of the difference.
Size, you're right.
Because of the difference in size.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And my other point that I wanted to make relative to the August 6th minutes is, and this comes from having a background in scouting. There was an Eagle Scout candidate who approached the village to get an authorization about the service project. make it a point to say that an Eagle Scout is not an Eagle Scout. He's an Eagle Scout candidate. He's not an Eagle Scout until he has performed an approved service project, has undergone a board of review, and has taken the Eagle charge, and then is awarded the Eagle rank. At that point, he can be called an Eagle Scout. Prior to that, he is an Eagle Scout candidate, or a Life Scout, which is the rank he attained prior to embarking on his Eagle rank goal. So that's a point that I want to make, because in the minutes it did say Eagle Scout. He is not an Eagle Scout.
Yes, you're correct, Marty. I
Thank
know
you.
Scouts too. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Frances Monahan Gerard. I live at 745 Geddes Avenue. Thank you, Trustee Marabella, for your honesty and clearing the air on some things. And Trustee Whitmore, I'll vote for you guys. I will vote for you guys. Mr. Weiss, you gotta come with the times, sir. You're behind the times. Social media is how people in this town are communicating with each other, period. I've learned a lot of things. And it's a sad state of affairs when I got friends that live outside of this town who are calling me on the phone, sending me texts and emails to notify me of an issue that's going on in our town. And as for you, sir, I don't know why we have a village administrator. This business of going around, and I know it's your job to do ordinances and pick things that are wrong, okay? You're former Army, right? Marine? Even better, I'm a former Navy corpsman, okay? No man or woman, child, whatever is left behind. You should know better than that. And instead of sending them letters, you turn around and you say, what can I do to help you? That's what brings this community together. You discuss me as a Marine if this is what you've done. You want to sit there and charge these people who've done nothing but give back to this community, especially the children of this community, okay? Of this community. And want to sit there and send them a piece of paper saying you can be charged as little as $25 a day up to $500 a day, when they've given so much more back in monetary and in just the time over that memorial, which means a lot to a lot of people. A lot of people. And yes, a lot of people died that day. A lot of military people are dying every day. And I'll be damned if I'm going to let them take that. If I have to go over there and keep that thing trimmed myself, I'll do just that, because that's my neighbor. I'm going to help them, and that's what this community is about, is helping each other. So get with it, Marine, because you're behind the times too. It's disgusting me.
My name is Shauna Holland, and I no longer live in this village. I live in Marengo. I drove an hour and a half in a tornado and a storm to get here to see what you guys were going to do about this tonight. I got an hour and a half to go home. So thank you to those of you that were forthcoming in how this all came about. I have a couple questions to you, sir. You said several times in your original speech that nowhere did anybody ever mention the word remove. No one ever asked them to remove the plaque. Do you have the citation in front of you?
I do not.
If not, I can read it for you. It's very clear. It's very clear. All obsolete signage must be removed, including signage referring to Spring Bluff School and the 9/11 Memorial. It says nothing about weeds, garbage, or any of the other stuff you mentioned. It says must be removed. And at least 5 times you said that nowhere did anybody ever ask for it to be removed.
For the memorial to itself to be removed.
Spring Bluff School sign and the 9/11 Memorial, it is in the citation. So read the citation next time before you speak to the public, because you were wrong on that. The other thing I want to ask you is, you said you were out about the village that day looking for other citations. How many other citations did you send that day?
I didn't say I was looking for other citations. I said I was out looking at a variety of things.
Did you send any police citations that day?
No.
I just drove through this village, and there are thousands
weeds in the cracks, weeds in the sidewalk, weeds in the driveway. So if this is not harassment, why was it only one letter sent out that day? If you spent your whole day on the paycheck that I'm sure they gave you, looking for those violations, that's the only one you found.
I never said I spent the whole day out there on the street. That's not what I do. I go out on the street, turn around and look at things, look at our roads, make sure that the roads are being repaired and that it's being done timely. I turn around and I go over to the west end of town to talk to people about the expansion of the landfill, the smells that they're having coming in as a result of the landfill. I look at Kenosha Road to see if there's any debris from the landfill. I go down to 14th and Monroe to talk to the people over there regarding the trees that have fallen over there and the progress they're making in trying to get those moved. There's a lot of things that get this.
But that's the only violation you saw or the only 6 violations you saw were on their property.
Well,
that was it.
Yeah.
That day,
moved in 8 years.
that day, and it doesn't necessarily mean that there haven't been other violations throughout the year.
You need to watch your wording or carefully when you're speaking to the community that is very closely watching the school board.
Why?
Sean?
Yes.
The reason that item is there, you know, removing signage for the 911 memorial, because under item 3, former 911 memorial, we did not know there was a memorial there.
Then why does it say remove the
It
memorial?
was
There.
not saying remove.
Somebody did.
It's signage.
Read the letter.
It's signage. Okay. Yes,
Read it.
I got it right here. It says, all obsolete signage must be
I've
removed.
heard you double talk my whole life. That's why I don't live here anymore, because you're double talk. I've heard you double talk.
No, I'm not double.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And it's constant.
No, I'm not.
Albert,
Yes, sir.
I'm not even tell you my story, but you ever hook me up on Facebook?
My name is
I
Tom
do
Brennan,
it.
I'm retired at...
I will tell you about this.
Tom. I reside at 1700 Third Street. My daughter is the road south. The trustees at the time were aware. The village was aware. A lot of what happened at Lee went out about the very aggressive way that the movement of the 911 memorial, there wasn't moved to this location right now, which, if you want to get into abandoned property, I've never seen anybody by that memorial. Right? I've seen people up there. We took care of it for years when it was up there. So, it existed. Any member of the community here that's involved in the community knew about it. If you didn't, maybe you shouldn't involve the community. It really did not get moved on here. It stayed there. It stayed there where it began. It's there now. It was well known about. And I think you have to appreciate that fact. I'm a 26-year-old veteran myself. I've got two daughters. Both of them got their strong style of Gold Award. Very proud of it. And regardless of the other things that are going on with this, don't demean that location. It's a very peaceful location. There's a flag there, Lisa, you see?
You're in New Orleans.
Yeah. It's just upsetting to go into. The gym that's torn down, it kind of looked like a bombed out area. And that's kind of why we did that. Because a lot of veterans coming back to that and appreciate that kind of thing. It's quiet. It's very nice. Very nice.
Thank you. Thank you.
Julie downtown, I live in Beach Park. I was a 30-year resident here in Winter Park, where I worked with several of you on the EDC. And from an outsider's perspective, I understand that you have to have ordinances and you have to maintain and handle those all equally and fairly. And you know, had that letter gone out and not said 9/11 Memorial, we wouldn't be here, Trustee Weiss. I wouldn't be here. So what I kind of expected, and I think what the national news and everybody would have expected from here tonight would have been, and I heard it from few people, would have been to say, you know what, we handled that wrong.
Yep.
We made a mistake. Maybe we could have handled it better. Maybe the homeowner could have handled it better. And truth be told, if they have other violations, that's between you and them. But this 9/11 Memorial, it really bothered me. And to sit here and try to be, it's just like, I don't wanna say kids, because that's disrespectful to you, but it's like when my kids, I didn't do it, he did it, I didn't do it, he did it. Maybe if you'd have just said, we need to handle this differently, let's get with the homeowners, 9/11 Memorial is off the table, it's staying or not, we'll talk to the homeowners, and we'll try to make this happen. I think I'll be done talking right now, too. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Julie.
So we are here today, and I'll just say something. We are here today, and usually, if anything's gonna be handled in a situation, other than citations and things, when if things were actually to be removed, it would be on our agenda. And whatever happened, you know, it's kind of embarrassing, and I'll take the blow, I'll take it. You know, I'm wearing what I wear today because I respect people. I have family members that were in service. I have family members that have been firemen and police officers. We don't take it lightly. It's a shame that it came to this, but sincerely from me, I'll apologize to each and every one of you. I didn't want this to come to this. It was brought to my attention. I knew nothing about it. I think we can fix it. I think we can move forward and fix it. I really do. I don't think the intention, and I fought for that memorial the first time. I mean, it's what we do. It's something that was done, and it was a grave mistake then. We tried to do something that was above us, that we tried to do that we couldn't do. And we gave it the stone back, we brought it back, and we made the different one, but we still had that one. You know, I walked to lunch there every day as a kid. I went to Springbluff School. My aunt taught kindergarten at Springbluff School. You know, I'm a member of this community my whole life. I appreciate this community. I always will. I walked to lunch by that spot every day. We had to walk out, and our lunchroom was the building next to there. So, a lot of us don't take it lightly, and we didn't know, but like, again, we entrusted the people that made the decisions, and maybe we made a mistake. It's not to say that these people aren't smart people and don't know what they're doing. We just made a mistake in the way we worded it. So I do apologize. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Dick Barr. I'm not a resident for Riften Harbor. I came here from the western part of Lake County with a car full of people because we were concerned about the optics of this. And we posted about it too on social media. And there was a lot of knee-jerk immediate reaction from the public saying, well, damn those board members. And we tried to say, listen, this is a board, these are ordinances. I'm sure the board had no knowledge of this letter going out. And I'm sure staff has just a very succinct set of procedures that it follows when it acts on these issues. And that's what it sounds like, exactly what happened. I think you should all be proud as board members to be willing to accept the blame and willing to accept some responsibility here and make changes. I think you should be more proud of the community who gets together on a late weeknight to come out and show support for a fellow neighbor. That doesn't happen very often, and they really deserve a lot of credit for that. And you should be happy that they're here instead of worried that they're here. The point is, communities around the country right now, they're softening the letters. They're softening the approach. Police departments, and I'm sure these gentlemen back there will agree, they're working on building stronger ties, stronger binds with the community to create more of a partnership in our towns instead of them versus us, the village versus us, the cops versus the criminals. We're all working together to try to become more together, more community focused. If you look around the country, and even here in Lake County, many people feel there's an assault on their heritage, an assault on their history. Memorials are being taken down. Civil War Days was canceled at the Lakewood Forest Preserve. People want to know that they're safe and the things that they hold pure are protected. So work on those letters, work on the wording of them, and I think it was you, Trustee Hargett, who pointed out that obsolete maybe doesn't mean anything to you because you're jaded to that word in your position, but it means so much to the person that gets that letter. And we know, I serve on many boards, we know it's just about getting the job done, but it's personal when the homeowners get that. So please just keep that in mind. I'm very proud to see some of the comments I saw tonight. Thank you very much, and thank you to the whole public for coming out and supporting Lee. Just make it 42797 North Peralta. I want to say something a little different to Mr. Jackson. A lot of people have questioned you being a Marine, question your honors, your brothers and your sisters. But I will say you've done something tonight. You did what you thought was right, and you're standing by it. And you're falling on your sword. You shouldn't fall on this sword alone. You didn't find this. You didn't write the letter. You didn't direct it. You didn't put the legalese in it. You didn't put it in the envelope. You didn't put a stamp. You didn't mail it. There was more people involved in this, but you were the only guy out of the whole thing who stood up taking the whole blame. Thank you. I appreciate that. Whether what was said or what happened, I don't care. You're doing that, and I'm saying, I think you're a double dog at the end. Now with that said, I think we can all recognize, people in the room, you people up there, the wrong thing was said. The wrong approach was taken. This is a special circumstance. This is a large property. These are good people that do a lot. The letter being sent just on its own wasn't enough. And Dana, you know, how do we treat these different? This one, I would say common sense. This isn't, you know, a little two-bedroom house with a gutter falling off or some bad bushes. This thing's pretty big. And it really did deserve more of a reach out to this, especially with the history that was painted by, you know, Ms. Woods. In the future, I would just like to see, because of the media coverage that this thing hit so fast, because of how much bad publicity we got, I see things on there, I'm never spending a dime in Winter Park, and all you trustees have worked so hard to make that go the opposite direction, to build this as a community. This is a pothole. This is a setback. And if anything happens, one, I want to see it resolved with the Woods, and I want it to be understood of what happens to help everybody either move it, maintain it. That's not the point. The point is that we treat them as citizens, and that the people they elected know what's happening. That's the other point. They did reach out. They contacted their trustees, and the trustees had no clue. No clue. This should have been a discussion, not a meeting, whatever you can call, you know, 2, 3 phone calls, emails, should at least reach out to all of the trustees. Not one, not two, not some, not just, you know, the city attorney, not just the mayor. Everyone should have gotten a thing saying, hey, this is going out, this is a big deal. We want to make sure this is welcoming versus assaulting. It came off as assaulting. And appearance is everything that it is, no matter what the intention. It's the way it comes out in the end. So like I said, I really do hope that this gets resolved with the Woods. And in the future, I think this should be a learning lesson, and this gave us a kickback. I don't think anybody really expected, but it happened. So I'd like to see us all move forward on that. Thanks for your time.
Why don't we have it made?
Anyone else?
Can I just make one comment from here?
Sure.
It's hard to get out. Did I hear you right to say that the wordage in your ordinances or whatever cannot be changed?
No, that's not correct. We can't change it. It has to be the board that changes the language in the ordinance.
Okay, you gonna work on that?
We're gonna have a discussion.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Katie Frank. I'm at 1503 9th Street. Great job, everybody, with the discussion and everything tonight. I just had a couple questions back from things that there was discussed in the past about updating the financial records online. That being updated since 2014. And just was asking if the meetings were still being recorded. And if they are, where can we find the recordings online?
They are being recorded.
Yeah, they are on YouTube site now.
It'll be on the webpage.
It'll be on the webpage tomorrow, but yes, there's I think 4 meetings that have already been put up there. On the financial records, we're in the process of redoing the entire website.
Okay.
And we're gonna have a library that's gonna also provide the financial audits as well as budgets and the capital improvement budgets as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
To be clear, before the meetings are posted, does it have to be after the minutes are approved at the next
Correct.
meeting?
Yes.
No, that's not required, is it?
So we can put them up.
Like it's our direction to
Right,
give
yes.
on our preference if it's before or after minutes are approved.
Okay.
I'm one of those outsiders that came in with the gentleman who spoke before. Paul Obama, Village of Lindenhurst. I served as mayor for 12 years. Retired back in 2002. I understand what all of you are going through. As a resident of the village, I was also called back to oppose the board's decision on a tax increment financing district. Put me in a real precarious position. What I have not heard here tonight is I have not heard what you want. I don't know what you want. I'm sitting through this whole meeting and I don't know what you're looking for. I'm getting an idea that the board wants to maintain the beauty of the village. And that's what we all want to do. Can I make one just very small recommendation?
Yes, sir.
Appoint whoever you see fit. My other hat is I also chair the Veterans Memorial Commission in Lindenhurst. Find a person to moderate or mediate between the two, because there's no losers on this if you do this right. If you do this wrong, you're all going to be losing. And I know that you have an idea for your property, short-term and long-term. And the board, you've got an idea of what this property should be short-term today and what it should be 20 years from now. Appoint somebody, get somebody to bring everybody together in a little room. The board can only have 3 members present. And if there are 3 members present, it constitutes a quorum, and it's a formal meeting. So there can't be any more than 2 board members. But between yourselves, pick somebody and talk it out, hash it out, and do me a favor. Take these 2 individuals who have busted their butts on this. And don't let them near the discussion until you come up with your own ideas of what you want to do. It may not work, but once you have an open idea, then present the individuals with the legalese necessary to effectuate whatever change you need. And it's all over with, and it's a damn happy community. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for stating it. Maybe I didn't state it as well as I could have, but that's the approach that I would have liked to have seen, because I wasn't aware of this until this morning. And none of the board members, I think, were really aware of this situation, you know, until this came up. But the way you stated it, and to mediate, I think that's the way to go, because the 2 parties can get together and say, hey, what do you want and what do we want, you know? Thank you very much for stating that.
On that though, I just want to say, and this kind of echoes what Trustee Marabella said, that it's true, you know, we didn't know, and I consider the Wood family friends, and I've worked with them on things, and they know that obviously I trust them, or else we wouldn't have, you know, worked on the things that worked on. But at the same time, not knowing about it, I'm willing to take responsibility for it, because in my opinion, Village Administrator Jackson was doing his job, and he did it correctly. There were some issues with that. Go ahead, please.
I just don't understand why we're paying someone $100,000 a year to drive around our property.
Well, that's a valid concern, but that's a small part of what he's done, is taken on some of that zoning stuff. There's a lot of other stuff that he's accomplished as a government liaison over the last 2 years.
Well, I've heard amazing
funding.
things about
Right.
him. I'm not going to deny the fact I have heard amazing things about him. My main concern is if you're driving around my property and you're finding all these problems. We've had a car parked out there for 8 years that hasn't moved. Obviously, I'm not going to turn in because I'm not that neighbor. It's gone now. I assumed he got a ticket, went and knocked on his door, but he didn't. But if you're finding all these violations, I mean, the thing's been sitting on his rims for years. I know because I plow the driveway for free because I'm neighborly like that and plow around it. You know, I plowed the church and it sat there for years. But he just didn't happen to find that. I mean, there's a lot of red flags here, and I just don't understand why we're paying someone $100,000, giving him a car, pension, whatnot, and he's driving around my property. We don't have somebody else, like a community service officer, maybe that would do that job?
Well, they do. to that job to an extent. I think it was referred to him because of the situation, I don't know the details of it.
Because of how large the size of it,
As
but
far,
no,
yeah, the size of it was included in it, but, we can talk to, I just wanna, to go back to the point I was making and not to, I just wanna stay focused, because I'm gonna forget what I was saying.
Okay, sorry.
So I apologize.
I suggested you.
So, I just wanna say, you know, so if there is blame, like, to me, like, as Trustee Marvell said, like, I'm willing to take on that, you know, if that's what people are upset about, but I do believe that, you know, for what it's worth, and like, you guys know I'm not happy with what happened, but he was doing the job that he was given to do. If people think we should be changing what it is, then we can discuss, you know, that to make sure the focus is on the right place, but that's a different conversation, than that. In this situation, I feel like he's getting a lot of that flack for doing what he was basically told to do.
Who told him to do that? That would be
Well,
my
that's part of the
question.
job description that was
The
in there,
job
was to
description
take on
was
part of
$100,000
the,
you were
well,
gonna
no,
do on my home.
no. Part of the ordinance compliance is part of that.
So, in my initial meeting, I did ask for a job description, none of which I have ever seen, so unfortunately, I don't think there is anything in a job description. This is kind of why I asked for a job description. I want a job description.
I just wanna know how it's his job to drive around my property when he's making that kind of money and has a vehicle given to him, if I'm not mistaken, by the village of Winthrop Harbor, why it's his job to drive around my property when we have community service officers do a great job of that. And they don't have a problem knocking on my door either and saying,
They're not
hey,
making $100,000.
your garbage can is blue.
I'm not sure if we do have
And
fence
they would
inside
send
the
it to
job
the right address.
like
Yes,
that.
they would.
Ms. Wood, I drive through the village to see what the potential needs are in the village, roads, culverts.
Yeah, I understand.
Please don't think, I hope you wouldn't think that all I did was turn around and drive around your property to target it. I understand that, but that absolutely, yeah, I understand that, and that's absolutely not the case. That's just one piece of the job. I don't feel like it, and it's only been 3 months in this capacity. I don't feel I get a feeling for the village and a different lack of water in one end, and there's septic in the other. You know, you don't get to know that unless you're out there and you get to see it and you get to talk to some of the people. I go to residents' homes all the time, and I have a drainage issue. Can you take a look at this? And I'm saying when I get a call, and I'm looking forward to working on this issue with you and your husband. So it's just one piece of the job. I mean, I'm not sitting out there like the CSO would be.
Yeah, but my problem here is someone's sending you to do your job. So my question to this board is, who is sending you to my home to find problems? Because obviously that's what's going on. Like, why are you coming by, who sent you? Like, you were told to do your job? Okay, I understand that, but who told you to go do that job? I feel like it's charity. How do you not notice a car that's been sitting on rent for 8 years? I mean, it's been sitting, like, it's horrible. But I don't turn them in because that's my neighbor, and I would never do that to them.
Yeah, and I can't explain why I didn't see that car. I can't explain why I didn't see that
And
car.
when did you come by? I would love to know when you came by, like, what day was this done?
I'd have to go back and look.
Because I would like to know that date, because obviously everyone knows that I've got cameras galore around the entire property. I'd love to just know how this exactly went around, that you didn't notice the car, but you went around my property and found all these other items. I mean, my cameras have already caught the fire inspector taking photos through my window, so it's sad that I have to have this capacity of cameras at my home, but obviously it's still needed.
Anybody else, public comments? Yes.
So, I just feel like, as someone else said, we're kind of leaving here without, you know, everybody's kind of vented and said what they had to say. But I'm sitting here just still with this nasty taste in my mouth that this is happening. So my question is, of the 10 days, what day are we on? And because of the wording, what stops whoever from coming in, as the letter states, because she's not in compliance, because the wording says obsolete and doesn't speak about the weeds, and apparently people here think it's obsolete. So I'm just wondering, are we gonna get to day 10 and you're gonna be like, surprise, this had nothing to do with the weeds? Like, where are we right now? Like, where does this stand right now? That's question number one. And question number two is, can we, as the taxpayers of this town, who are paying this man $100,000 get a hold of that job description.
It's actually 14 days on that.
Okay, what day are we on and where are we at?
13.
We're on day 13.
So tomorrow, you could go take her memorial because it's
No,
out.
it's got one more day, and then.
So in 2 more days, you can say.
No,
They
we're not gonna take
They
To
can't
the,
touch it, it's on her
To
property.
the comment someone made earlier, right, Lee and Jesse, I mean, it is your desire to keep both the Spring Bluff sign and the sign for the memorial, right? And it is your desire to continue maintaining the memorial and making it available to the public? Right, that's,
At this point, yes.
right, okay.
There's
So-
something you need to know too. These guys get visitors all the time. Oh, we went to this school 50 years ago. Constant.
Yeah.
And they've always been very pleasant to them. They've got a couple of people that come and just sit over in the Veterans Memorial, in the 9/11 Memorial.
Yeah.
There's a guy who sits all,
You're just a rude
all the
person.
time.
You sit up there and roll your eyes at everybody when everybody
Oh, that's
talks.
nice. We can hear
You're just
you.
rude.
The attorney.
lawyer.
So to the,
That's
to
why
the-
we can hear you down.
To the statement then that Greg made earlier of kind of the village stance, and I think all of us kind of affirmed up here, if it's maintained at the standard that it's actually where it's there as a memorial, the signage is a non-issue, right?
But the signage is the issue according to
But
your
so
letter.
the signage, the way that the ordinance works is that it's referring to something that's no longer there. Based on the review of the property being unmaintained, it was deemed as the memorial is no longer there, right? So the signage is obsolete because it's referring to something that's not there. If it's maintained as a memorial that's open to the public, then the signage is a non-issue. Is that correct,
It
Greg?
was considered abandoned. Abandoned means that nobody's there, but clearly somebody's there because you could just knock on my door and I would answer it at any time. You have no problem messaging me or talking about the roads that you're fixing on the other properties I bought in Mr. Carver, because I now have 6 of them. And I don't seem to have any problems with anyone contacting me about any of those as well, but
Well, that
you
might start
can't,
now.
but you
Oh.
can't knock on my door.
When I became aware of this, I reached out to try and get information, and reached out to you immediately to say, hey, I'm at a funeral, can we meet early next week and try and figure this thing out?
You told me that the village attorney told you that let me read the message exactly what you told me the village attorney told you. I mean, let me make sure I word it properly so I don't get that wrong. Because,
You said that sign isn't there anymore, but you want it removed. I don't understand that. How can you remove something that isn't there?
The
You just have to
obsolete
say
nature, what was apparently obsolete has been shown to not be obsolete. That's what this whole thing turns out to be.
Well, why can't we just go ahead and resolve it right now?
If your
Their
attorney says it's not
turnaround, they say they wanna keep it, they're gonna maintain it. And
So
if
let's
they-
take a vote, they don't have to remove anything.
You can't take a vote on it because it's not on the agenda. The state doesn't allow us to take a vote on it.
Then let's have a special meeting tomorrow.
Oh, what about the voice of the people?
Voice of the people.
That only resolves 1 of 5 issues.
You don't care about
We're not worried about, our issue out here right now is 9/11, that memorial. That's why we're all here. We could care less about the trees, the grass, the fence, or anything else out there. What we want is an answer on 9/11 memorial.
I believe, and it's my personal belief, but the mayor's gonna have to speak to this. I don't think any action will be taken on this matter. And he can speak to that because he's the mayor, I'm just a trustee.
Mayor,
No,
do it.
I don't have a problem with you keeping the memorial there, I don't. That's not
So
an
she's
issue.
not
in
gonna
my
get a
opinion.
fine tomorrow.
I mean, you could keep it there, just keep it within, nice, pristine, so that people can see it and go over and pay their respects.
If anybody sees
But
Wakefield
there are
people,
other, 4 or 5 other
we'll hurt
codes,
ya.
codes that we need to work on. And we'll get through this too. I mean, I wanna see us remedy this as well, and we will remedy this.
I just still wanna know who sent him to my house.
how does this chain of command work?
There's no conspiracy theory, right? There wasn't any direction that was given by.
He didn't go specifically out to my house and stop and say, you know what, I'm gonna give this one a bunch of tickets.
And nobody else that day.
And again, we write notices like this as a regular habit throughout the year.
Yeah, it's not working.
At least as far as I'm aware, no one said, go look at this property for violation.
Yeah, so somebody sent them.
Who said,
It's
did
a
you?
out there.
Oh, yes, you do. Want me to rewind it?
Yeah.
Absolutely. absolutely, I will get.
I came out to that property because I was driving through off of Sixth Street. I know exactly where I was coming from. I came down Russell Road. I turned around and came up, looking at Whitney, because we just did some road work. Came past to get a Methodist church there on the corner. That's your property now. Saw a military truck. A military truck. I believe it was on College side of the street. And I went around the building. It was me driving into the...
Right next to that gigantic deuce is a car that sits on rims for 8 years. You didn't happen to notice
I
that?
did not see that, no.
Amazing how that works.
It could be easy for me to say that I did, but I didn't. I'm sorry.
All that small rock and all that.
No, I didn't see the rock and the reeds. That was the problem.
The weed, oh my God, the rock is right up front with the plaque on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mow around it, I know that that one's at least, you can see everything on that one. The other one, not so much.
No.
He didn't see the sign, that's why are you calling for it to be removed in the letter?
How'd you know there was a memorial there if you never saw the sign?
It's only been here 3 months.
I was told there was a...
Right,
Who told you?
Who told you? Who told you? That's what we're trying to get at.
Because the mayor claims,
Because
he
you
don't know,
I
he's telling us.
No, we're talking about, we have a 911 memorial over there. That's all the conversation
Mayor
was.
said it wasn't there.
Yeah, the mayor claims he had no clue it was there.
But yet you want to remove it. You want to remove, but it's not there.
We're gonna have to Vegas, stays in Vegas.
Anybody else to address them?
I can't wait till I see.
Yes, sir.
I can't wait.
I hate to put my mayoral hat on, but you guys are acting like horses' asses, all of you. Let's knock it off. Let's think about being adults, make adult decisions, get rid of the emotion, and base your information on relevant fact. Right now, you're just beating on each other just for the sport of it. If I want to see that, I can turn on any of a number of different channels. I didn't drive over here to see a cage match. You guys are so far above what you're letting yourselves become right now. Let calmer minds prevail. Give your village administrator a hand for doing a job that's a thankless job. My village administrator took all the abuse to it. And he's a better man for it, as long as you can outlive it. Thank you.
Leave that one down.
Also, Vietnam veteran, he's been exposed to Agent Orange. He's got a lot of problems, but his brain works fine.
I heard he's a
So
remarkable guy.
he knows about war, he knows about sacrifice. He's just not some guy.
He's not the only one.
The village
Me
attorney.
too, I'm Vietnam too.
Oh, Rich. This is a guy that I've known for a hell of a long time. He was one of our first speakers that we had at our Veterans Memorial in Lindenhurst. This goes back about 13, 14 years. The village attorney takes tremendous amount of abuse. He is the mayor's right-hand man.
We know.
There are times over my 12-year tenure that I personally had to say, Paul, shut up, very quietly. And he'd write me a note and say why. And as I think it through, there was a good reason for the discussion. This guy has the legal background that to keep the rest of you and the board members out of some form of court of law. That's his main job, is to keep us all above board and make sure none of these accusations that I've been hearing tonight really can transpire.
So he can go to Daddy on that too.
Please, I don't have the power to do this, but I'd sure as hell like to see somebody call for adjournment so I go have a drink.
Amen. I second it.
We're going to move on to unfinished business. We'll start down with trustee Merlo.
All right, so I thank everybody for coming tonight. I think it's pretty important. I think you've shown your stance on things. I believe things will be resolved. I can't promise anything, conglomeration of the board, but obviously everybody's taken everything into consideration tonight, and I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. All I got is, we got fall baseball coming up, so please drive slowly around our parks, our kids are out there. I always say about my house, just because the kids cross the street there on Broadway. Tim's not here tonight, our public works representative, but I think our pavement projects have wrapped up. I think we've done a pretty good job this year. We're gonna do some extra patching. We got some money and we're working on some other things, so overall, we've been pretty good on our end. Nothing major has happened, knock on wood. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Trustee Marvell. Trustee Levin? Nothing? Trustee White?
I just want to thank everybody here tonight. By the way, I do look at Facebook and social media. Now, you can see my cell phone and all the texting that I get. I mean, I do it. But when I look at it, I have to look at the information that I'm receiving to make sure that it's proper. Because, you know, whether we all have our biases. And I want to make sure that what I'm reading and seeing is proper and true sometimes, and sometimes I don't get it because I see a lot of emotions like here tonight. Understandably, I understand that, you know, so, but you are very eloquent in the way you state, and I really appreciate that. I think we need to have the parties come together and get this resolved as an issue. Like I said, the code, we didn't write the code. The code says obsolete. It's a horrible word. So maybe we can do something about it, and I think maybe we can bring it up at the next meeting, you know, that we can do it at that time. We can't do it tonight, so. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Trustee Hargis?
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming. I think it was said very well earlier. This is the kind of passion you want to see from the community, is people coming out. And whether we always agree completely on things or I think everyone is going to leave here feeling like we learned a little bit. There's things that we can grow on in how we communicate with people. But also, I believe that Greg and Lee and Jesse are going to be able to get together and sort out the details of all of this. It was mentioned earlier during public comment, but we just wanted to highlight, we did get a notice today from our IT director that they had set up a YouTube channel for the recordings of these meetings. So we'll be posting going back to the beginning of this fiscal year. We've been working through a couple of technical issues with that, but have gotten that resolved now. So there's going to be a link on the village homepage for that. And then there is a kiosk out in the hallway. We have a nice crowd here. If you're wanting to sign up for notices on the Northern Lakeshore bike trail that there's a planning group working on right now to connect the trail system along the lakefront from Winthrop Harbor through North Chicago. What day does that get picked up, Matt?
The 5th.
The 5th. So you have until the 5th here at Village Hall to get input there. You can also visit connecttonorthernlakeshore.com to get information as well.
Thank you, Trustee Hart.
Just thank you to everybody for your comments and coming out. I did want to speak for a moment to some things that were brought up by Mr. and Mrs. Butler, that a while back we did talk about the possibility of parts of the packet that were not confidential, posting those online with the agenda, which would help to address a lot of the concerns they brought up, both of having, you know, correct information, because not all our minutes can be verbatim every time. There's a lot of talking going on. As good as Julie is, she can't get every detail there because we're saying a lot of things. So having those elements of the packet would address those concerns. It would also address what Mr. Butler was talking about, like with the amendment to the wage ordinance, that they'd be able to see it beforehand. So if there are elements of the packet that can be on there, I think we should discuss, you know, putting it online, if that's possible, so that people have that information. It's just one more element of transparency.
Thank you, Trustee Wetmore.
Yes, thank you, everybody, for coming out today. Just some unfinished Parks and Rec Department news. On Friday the 13th, we are having team night. That is our team dance. We are kind of just revamping that for 5th to 8th grade students.
Those are great nights to have.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
Enjoy all for the Parks and Rec volunteers with those children. On the 20th, it is gym night for kindergarten through 4th grade students. And then on Saturday, the 21st, again, that is our annual Touch a Truck, which we have everyone from Light for Life to bouncy houses to ice cream trucks coming. Lee and Jesse are going to be bringing vehicles, hopefully still, and lots of other municipality vehicles. So please come up to that. It is a free event.
Thank you, Trustee.
And my husband, who doesn't even listen when I'm not talking, you have to go get our children now. I don't think you're picking up on my social media.
It's cheating.
Yep.
Thank you, Trustee Romar. I'd like to also thank everyone for coming out, and everyone had good points, and we'll work through this, I guarantee it. You know, it's good that everyone came out and put in their, you know, their thoughts about this, and, you know, I wanna get this resolved just as much as all of you do, so. On that, that's all I have. On that, I'll ask for your You got that, girl. Roll call.
Corrigan?
Aye.
Levin? Mirabella?
Aye.
Carter?
Aye.
White?
Aye.
Whitmore? Aye.